Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Arends. I'm co-chair of the Chamber's Policy Council. I want to thank and welcome the viewers tuning in to the Tampa Bay Chamber's 2022 Virtual Candidate Forum Series. The Tampa Bay Chamber focuses on policy, not politics, and while they do not endorse, this forum serves as a means to make sure its members and the business community are informed on where candidates stand on issues that are important to business. Today, we are excited to have candidates for Florida Senate District 21. So I'd like to welcome Senator Ed Hooper and Amaro Líonheart. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to jump right into it. We are just 6 weeks away from Election Day. Can you give us a brief 2-minute or less update on your campaign and what message you want to deliver to voters in the final stretch? And Senator, we'll begin with you.
Okay, thanks again, Rebecca. And our campaign's in high gear and full gear. We're working in. I have a team in Pasco County and a team in Pinellas, and they're out every day putting up signs. We are on the road every day and most evenings, splitting our time between the two counties, and obviously spending some time doing fundraising. And doing some print material. I think we're shooting a commercial next week that will hit the airwaves, and then we'll be on the air at least with one, maybe two commercials till the election cycle is completed and the election is over. We're in good shape financially. We're sitting on about $800,000 available to get through the end of this cycle, and work diligently. You know, it's the worst part of politics is fundraising, the worst by far. But it's necessary if you're going to do TV or you're going to do a lot of print material and mail pieces. It takes dollars to reach out to the voters and let them know who you are, what you've done, and what your campaign is about. So we're pleased with every part of our campaign. We have great team, great consultants, and we're looking forward for this 6 weeks to be over, and I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Candidate Líonheart?
Hi, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, my name is Amaro Líonheart. I am a public school teacher. I teach AP Chemistry and Marine Science. And our campaign is also going pretty good. We're actually hyper-focused on the connecting with the people, giving it the personal touch. Every day, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm out there in the streets, talking to every citizen across 2 counties, as well as my opponent, who is actually doing a fantastic job himself. I guess this election is kind of going to boil down to a challenge of ideas. I guess kind of the old way of thinking and kind of the new way of thinking with fresh new blood and a new perspective on a candidate like myself, bringing the new 21st century mode of thinking in terms of technology, diversification, and the empowerment of our economy.
All right. Could you please tell us the 3 most pressing issues the legislature will face this coming session and how, if elected, you plan to address those issues? And Candidate Líonheart, we'll start with you.
Correct. The 3 most pressing issues I believe that are going to be on the forefront is one thing we're going to see is one of the culture war issues, which is the Roe versus Wade as it gets tossed back to the states. And that's one of the issues which I'm actually 100% pro-choice, and I believe in women's reproductive rights, and I believe government should not be meddling in medical decisions or trying to dictate what a person does or doesn't do. The second thing is housing. We're reaching a housing crisis where Florida has now become the most expensive state to live in, hyperinflated rents, continue to get out of control. We need to focus on reducing that level of expense and actually creating a lot of affordable housing, and maybe even working with our federal partners to bring in federal dollars to actually, working on homesteading. And the third one is, I believe it's going to be also another big one, is the home insurance crisis as well. Floridians are going to be uncovered in case we do we're going to be having a hurricane pretty soon. I believe it's heading towards us. Hopefully it'll deviate, but no Floridians actually really protected for a major catastrophe. So those are kind of the top three issues I think that the legislative body are going to be really handling in the upcoming session.
Thank you. And Senator Hooper, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Actually, number one in the state right now, and 3 out of 4 calls to my office, is property insurance. Everybody is getting renewals. They're in sticker shock, including yours truly. So property insurance is number one on the agenda, I believe, for not only the Senate and the House, but also the governor's office. Number two, and part of number one, includes a solution to one-way attorney's fees and a fairly comprehensive tort reform package that will let insurers know that it again is safe to come back into the Sunshine State and at least have a fair fight on your hands. Number two is water to me, and that includes everything from creeks, springs, rivers, the Tampa Bay, and the water we drink and bathe in. 1,000 people a day are still coming into this state to reside. They all want to take a bath, hopefully every day. They all want to have water to do the basics of life. So having adequate, safe, clean water is important. And part of that solution is helping communities transfer and transition from depending on septic tanks. 39% of Florida is still on septic tank, into an advanced wastewater treatment facility to increase the capacity of our cities and counties to make that transition. And the third piece, I believe, is rightly or wrongly, I think this year the legislature is going to address a gaming issue. There's pending court battles over the online gaming compact with the tribe that's been declared not viable. So the tribe gives the state of Florida $500 million a year, and when that was declared not viable, those payments stopped. So that's $500 million a year that we are not getting, and I think those three issues will get a tremendous amount of attention in this upcoming session.
All right, thank you both. Senator Hooper, we'll start with you first on this one. Do you support the continuation of broad home rule municipal powers to ensure that municipalities are responsive to the unique needs and preferences of their citizens?
Rebecca, we had just a little blip right in the middle of your question. Can I get you to just repeat it?
Technology, right?
It's a blessing or a curse.
No worries. All right. Do you support the continuation of the broad home rule municipal powers to ensure that municipalities are responsive to the unique needs and preferences of their citizens? So essentially, do you support the home rule currently?
There is actually a great question. In the past 2 years, there's been an attack on home rule. There are those that think the Tallahassee politicians know better than those that represent us here at home. There's been one person, at least in the Senate, that has fought hard to stop preemption to the state on anything that should be handled by the local government. And just last month was in Hollywood, Florida, to receive from the Florida League of Cities the Defender of Freedom award. That's the highest award they have to give out. So I'm honored to have that. It will be proudly displayed in my office in Tallahassee for the entire session. So I'm a big believer, and I come from local government, having served as a city commissioner for 5 years before ever going to the legislature. So home rule is important. They know what's best for their communities and their counties, and we ought to stay out of their way.
Great. Candidate Líonheart, same question for you as well.
Of course. I think there is a fine balance in that, because we just recently saw Governor DeSantis basically replace our one of our prosecutors here in the Tampa Bay and also remove 4 school board members. So I believe there has to be kind of a balance too as well, because with the home rule, I agree that the local citizens know best. But what happens, let's say, for example, the Second Amendment. If the city of Miami decides to ban a certain firearm, does that mean Tallahassee would just say, hey, you know what? We're going to go along with that. Obviously, that's not going to happen. They're going to override, and they're going to enforce what the 2A constitutional amendment stands for across the entire state. We could see limitations on rights, so that's why we need to have a balance. I agree 100%. Also, we did also see on terms of the city of Tampa trying to ban single-use plastics, overrode by the governor. So I believe in certain aspects we can actually, the cities and the county should have a certain level of autonomy. But when it comes to really critical issues like enforcing the Constitution or enforcing, enforcing basically any type of, we also have the same thing on the federal side. So correct, I believe there should be a certain level of autonomy, but there also has to be limits within that autonomy, because it could be a slippery slope where you could have rogue cities basically initiating rogue laws.
All right, thank you very much. I know that you both have mentioned home insurance and property insurance, and that's my next question. Florida has always been a complex home insurance market. The recent issues are pushing the state's market to the point of collapse. What can be done to prevent the collapse of the insurance market here in Florida? Senator Hooper, let's begin with you. Apologies.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Several things. Actually, the first thing that needs to occur is to do away with one-way attorney's fees. Insurance companies are in the market today with both hands tied behind their back. If they fight a claim and they lose, not only do they lose the amount of the claim, they now have an enormous attorney bill that they are required to pay. So let's do away with one-way attorney fees. Let's go to actual cash value of roofs. If I have an 18-year-old roof on my house and 10 shingles get damaged, I shouldn't be entitled to get a free roof. It doesn't work in the auto world. It doesn't work anywhere else. But in today's insurance world, if you have roof damage, somebody is going to come and say, hey, would you like a free roof? And almost everybody would say, yes, I would. Thank you very much. We're all paying for that. And that's why we see at least one insurer a week and sometimes more leave this market, because it's not fair. So those two things will do the most effective way of bringing back insurers back into this market, and just a comprehensive tort reform that at least creates a level playing field between the insurers and the attorneys and the homeowners, brings balance back to the whole insurance operation. If we do those three things, insurers will come back into the market, and we will have a vibrant economy in that world that is not dependent on citizens insurance.
Thank you. Candidate Líonheart?
I'm going to go a little different route. I really believe one thing we could do to basically put a handle on this insurance situation is to basically leverage our surplus and create a catastrophic fund in which we could actually help a lot of these insurance companies actually cover a lot of cost. Also, there are the attorney fees. One thing we should be doing is actually facilitating and reducing bureaucracy so our citizens could actually get the support and help they need, and actually getting their claims taken care of. It shouldn't always have to go to court. I know it costs us a little bit of money in order to actually get a lot of this done, but I believe if we're able to actually maintain a safe level of housing by providing, let's say, roofs, let's say like Senator Hooper talked about, like 3 shingles being replaced. Sometimes it may be more cost effective to replace the roof as it would be in a car. If you get in a car accident, they may just total your car when you may think the damage is not as bad. We don't know if there's other structural damages there. So I really believe that we need to leverage that surplus, develop a catastrophic fund, and then go from there where we're actually self-sufficient. And actually another aspect to that is if you're going to be selling car insurance in Florida, and I think that failed at the Senate or in the legislature, you're going to have to be forced to also sell home insurance. You can't pick and choose what you want to cover. I believe if you're going to sell one type of insurance, you should be offering the wide spectrum to our citizens. They deserve it, and they pay just like we all do, and they need to be able to access those services when needed.
Great. Thank you, candidate Líonheart. And we'll stick with you for the next question first. Housing availability has been a major issue for many Floridians, including your district. How would you seek to make housing more affordable?
Correct. I believe that we're getting a lot of new development. Actually, I live in the country. I don't know if Senator Hooper's familiar with my area. I live at Lake Chautauqua Estates, right next to Dimmitt Chevrolet. And not too far from there, they're building a new, I think that's a new apartment or condominium. I'm not sure what it's going to be at the end. It used to be a mobile home park where people of low income housing were, and then I guess they kind of were removed. So something we need to enforce is for working class, for every new development, we need to allocate at least 20% of all housing to make sure that our working class citizens are able to afford to live there, meaning that working class defined as doctors, lawyers, teachers, anybody who goes and makes a living doing work. On top of that, we also have some available land that we could actually utilize for low-income housing, and for the workers that don't make as much money, let's say has a lawyer or a teacher or other working class people, then we're able to allocate a lot. We could actually allocate some funding into that. And another aspect is I have a lot of contacts in the federal government. I will be utilizing that to bring funding to our state if elected. And also we're gonna actually utilize that funding to actually purchase land and actually develop housing with federal grants and actually partnerships with corporations to make sure that our citizens are able to live and afford to be in the city they work in and love.
Great. And Senator Hooper, same question to you. How would you seek to make housing more affordable?
Thank you, Rebecca. And unfortunately, in not only this state, but a lot of states, affordable housing is almost a term that is extinct. So the key is making sure that housing is attainable. There's several ways I see to do that. One is for year after year after year, some of us fight to take the trust fund that is dedicated to affordable housing, the Sadowski Trust Fund, and fully fund that as it's intended and written in the statute books. We always do not do that. So every year I fight to fully fund the Sadowski Fund that is directed through the Florida Housing Corporation to ensure that money is split between affordable housing and then affordable apartments for seniors and those with some disabilities. That's one solution. The second is that I passed a bill last session that is called the Hometown Heroes legislation. What that does is it offers essential workers, and that's firefighters, police officers, teachers, healthcare workers, professionals in the teaching community, those people that every day during the pandemic could not work from home. They had to go to work and expose themselves and their families to coronavirus and all the illness and death that brought into our communities. It says if you want to buy a home in the community where you serve, we will pay you up to $25,000 for closing costs and down payment assistance to get into that home. Now, luckily, home prices are decreasing as we speak. The days of bidding wars are over. Unfortunately, the interest rate problem is exacerbating the ability of of affordability for someone who wants to buy a home. Those two things will do more for the affordable housing problem or the attainable housing in our community than anything else that I can foresee.
All right, thank you. Next question is about education. Public education from K through 12 through post high school is a major focus of the Chamber's Workforce Development Committee. What will you do to increase the funding of community and technical colleges in order to invest in the workforce? Senator Hooper, we'll begin with you.
Thank you. The focus on technical college, technical training, and technical schooling is at an all-time high. You know, once upon a time, all of us were told that you have to go to college, which means you get to strap on a tremendous amount of student loan debt. Now you can earn a tremendous living in the technical education world and have no student debt and go to work, do an apprentice right out of high school. And we have auto technicians making $100,000 a year. So we need to make sure that those that choose not to invest in a college education, let's give them the ability to specialize in whatever field they want to pursue a career in, get them educated, get them trained, get them in the workforce. And I think record funding has occurred in that facet of education in the last 4 years than was ever contemplated in any year previous to that.
Thank you. And candidate Líonheart, same question for you.
I think
you're muted,
Senator, but I just.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Senator Hooper. Actually, I'm going to say I have a great deal of respect for Senator Hooper for saying what he just said about the technical school and technical training. And I would also like to add something else. I actually believe that every single student from grade 9 all the way to 12 should already automatically be enrolled and given the option of what fields they want to go into. So meaning if we could actually start getting them trained from grade 9 to 12, by the time they graduate, they would be graduating with certificates and actual ready to go work in a trade skill. They could actually do apprenticeships during summer, as we see that crime is at a all-time high with youths of between 16 to 17. It's getting pretty high. And as they said, idle hands get in trouble, correct? So I really believe that we could actually get a lot of these kids, instead of wasting their time in summer, doing nothing in summer, actually getting them actually working in summer, actually starting to build a relationship with a lot of these organizations and companies. And by the time they graduate from high school, they're ready to actually go to work in a field. I was one of the people that actually was told I have to have a college degree. I went to a private university, spent about $200,000 on my education. So, and I could tell you, like Senator Hooper mentioned, there are people with certificates getting into unions and other types of trades that are making probably more than I am right now as a teacher. So I 100% agree. Our main focus should be on technical training to meet our increasing workforce and also as we diversify our economy.
All right. Next question. One of our strategic goals under the Business and Economic Development Guiding Principle of the Chamber's legislative agenda is creating a welcoming climate for business and private investment in our community. Is this a priority of yours? And what policies, if so, what policies have you supported in the past or would you recommend in the future to improve our community's business climate? Candidate Líonheart, will begin with you.
Sure. I would actually support bringing in federal dollars to actually using my connections to bring federal dollars, working with our reps and senators to actually take that funding and actually apply it to incubator programs for starting new businesses and actually creating a welcome, like you said, a welcoming environment. One thing Florida really needs desperately is to diversify its economy. we're too focused on two industries. And we saw during the coronavirus that that took a big hit, especially now that we're getting a great deal of funding from President Biden with the Build Back Better plan and other stimuluses that the federal government is providing for our state and other states. We could actually leverage also some of that funding to actually put it into good use to develop new business models and new business relationships to not only attract people from other states, but one important thing we need to also focus on is what are we going to do to actually empower our Florida businesses. Small businesses, as Senator Hooper can agree, and almost everyone in this room and who's going to be watching, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. So making sure that we bipartisanly work to actually make sure that they get the funding they need to actually amplify and expand, which means they would spend more money and put that into the economy by hiring more people, and it's going to be very empowering. Like I said, we just need to diversify, and we need to also empower our Florida businesses. It's not only about attracting people from the outside, but what can we do to actually use Florida First initiatives to empower our businesses here locally?
Thank you. Senator Hooper, over to you.
Several things, Rebecca. This past 2 years, I was the chairman of the Commerce and Tourism Committee in the Florida Senate. And I also structured and wrote the budget for the Transportation, Tourism, and Economic Development Appropriations Committee that is accountable for about $13 billion of the state budget. For 12 years in my time in the legislature, out of 12 years, I have 12 honor roll from the Florida Chamber Awards. Every year I'm there. Based on my voting record, I make the honor roll, which is at least an A grade every year I've been there. 2 of those years, a Distinguished Advocate Award, one for writing the state statute that allowed private companies to write flood insurance instead of the federal program. And the second for saving Visit Florida, which welcomes 135 million out-of-state visitors annually to come into our state and enjoy what we have to enjoy every day. So as far as from a business perspective, the Florida Chamber understands that Senator Hooper got the memo, and I'm proud of those awards. I'm proud of those accolades. And the best thing that the Florida legislature can do is stay out of the way and let business do their thing.
All right, I just have a few more questions. What legislation do you hope to introduce in the upcoming legislative session? Senator Hooper, we'll begin with you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Usually every session I do about somewhere between 26 and 35 bills. And some of those are geared directly to our local community and things that make not only Pinellas and Pasco County, but Tampa Bay meet the needs of that. This past year, I think because of my legislation, about $250 million was included in the budget for projects throughout Tampa Bay, and they were important. One of the biggest was Moffitt Cancer Center, the shining star of cancer research, technology, and treatment, is building a new campus in Pasco County, and it will encompass 800 acres and offer a tremendous opportunity to treat, research, and cure every cancer known to all of us, and be on a par with the other 3 recognized cancer centers in the United States. And that will be incredibly important to everybody that has to address that nasty cancer word in their family or themselves. So I'll be continuing to fight for making sure that they get what they need to be able to treat cancer. I like to work more on appropriations than I do policy, but there are some policy issues that are going to be extremely important. The Senate President has already talked about several things. The Senate President designate, I should say, has already, we've had several discussions about some policy issues that she would like to see me carry. Obviously, after November the 8th, I will be a integral part of her leadership team and be shaping the agenda for the Senate and for the legislative process and working toward, we have money. If we can dodge hurricanes for the rest of this summer, then when we go to Tallahassee, we'll be in a position to hit the ground running and do some things that were unthought of in previous years when the budget was not so robust.
Thank you. Líonheart?
Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. There's just a little bit of feedback, but we can hear you okay.
All right, cool. So I think one of the biggest legislation I want to actually push once elected is actually helping our disabled community. There are so many Floridians that are suffering from one disability or another. And I really believe in governance with compassion. We have to start showing more compassion to our caregivers who are basically living on substandard and not even paid half the times. They have to sacrifice their jobs in order to take care of a loved one. So loved ones don't end up in medical facilities. So one thing I want to actually address is basically eliminating the wait list and increase the waiver funding for our disabled communities. That is, I think, is very huge. I also agree on increasing funding to fighting cancer. I lost my mother to pancreatic cancer about 4 years ago. I lost my grandma to liver cancer. She never drank a day in her life, but she passed away from liver cancer last summer. And my great uncle died from lung cancer as well. We're starting to see there's a trend. There's a trend there. There's like Ms. Senator Hooper said, that C word is taking a lot of lives, and we need to put a lot of funding into actually fighting and defeating cancer and increasing longevity for our seniors. And that all comes down to basically providing preventative health care. So we need to make sure that every single Floridian has access to preventative health care. And we actually have the ability to offer all of our citizens not only affordable health care, but the ones that are struggling, we could actually afford them the ability to actually access health care, because I really believe health care is a human right, not a privilege. And finally, to conclude, also, we need to actually protect women's reproductive rights in the state. It is protected under our privacy laws, and as a state senator, I'm going to make sure that we actually make sure that every woman in the state is protected from the unhinged laws being passed that have basically turned every single woman in this country into second-class citizens. So that is kind of a lot of my focus, as well as some economic issues. Thank you.
Thank you both. So we've touched on some very important issues today. Before we wrap up, is there a priority that you have that we haven't discussed, or something that you would like reemphasize? And candidate Líonheart, we'll start with you.
No, Rebecca.
Thank you very much. Oops.
Oh, go ahead, Senator Hooper.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. The healthcare is 40% of the entire state budget. And it's an area of funding that you heard my opponent speak about several issues in the healthcare arena. It's a portion that you're almost guaranteed failure in the ability to adequately address all of the needs. Yes, we have kids that need tremendous help. We have seniors. We have veterans. In the insurance crisis, there are so many pieces of healthcare appropriations that could do so much good, but you can only spend what you're allocated in that silo to do. So there are tremendous wait lists out there that We try to cut down as much as we can every year and get as many people getting services and off that wait list as possible. But there are other needs. Our education system, we've gone from about 49th in the state a decade ago to we're now in the upper 10% of all 50 states in our education arena. And that's come about not only because we have tremendous public schools and public school educators, but we have choice. Parents are now in control of their children's education. If they choose to go to a charter or private school, that's a parent's decision who can be engaged in their process. Criminal justice is an area that there are several 100,000 people in this state that are in prison. And most of them are in prison because that's where they ought to be. They've done horrible things and committed atrocious crimes, but that takes funding to make sure. And attracting and hiring prison security is always tough. It's hard to try to meet the needs of every part of this economy and our state. Even with a $110 billion budget, it's still hard to do, but we do it very well. Constitutionally, we have to do it balanced. We can't borrow a nickel. So our state's healthy. I just want to continue to make our state attractive. It would be nice to attract some of these Fortune 500 companies and even smaller companies to come out of the high tax states of New York, California, Illinois, et cetera, bring their company to Florida where they're treated well, where their employees are treated well, and where their wages and taxes are treated better than where they came from. So that'll be the continuing theme in my time in the Senate.
Thank you. And Candidate Líonheart, I'll turn it over to you.
Correct. Sure. So, and I'm concluding correct on this issue here. Or am I responding?
Same question. Yeah. If you have any particular priorities that you haven't discussed yet, or if there's something else you'd like to reemphasize.
Yes, I will like to actually disagree on a couple of points. Florida actually ranks 48th and actually dead last on almost every educational scale. We did try to privatize an entire county. That failed miserably. There are things we cannot privatize. Education is one, law enforcement is another one. We actually have more people in prison. I think California beats us by a little bit, but our penal populations are just out of control. Not every single person that's in there is a violent offender. Some people in there are people with deep. We have people that have psychological issues in terms of mental health. We also have people with addiction issues, something we didn't really touch upon here. And most of the people going to prison are people with drug charges that are basically sick, need rehabilitation. I wish the legislative body would actually focus on rehabilitation. Not everybody who is addicted to drugs is a hardcore criminal. We are creating monsters. We need to end that crib to prison pipeline that is taking our children, and Pinellas County is actually charges more children. At least this area between Pinellas County and Pasco charges more children as adult than any other county in our state. So what are we doing to actually address that? Obviously, we need to invest more money on education, and actually on the healthcare aspect, our governor continues to say we are not going to take President Biden's, or before that, the other one didn't take President Obama's expanded Medicaid money. That money's there. And there's and they're giving us that money. He took money from the Build Back Better, and other funding came from the federal government. And there's actually funding to cover a lot of these expenses that we could actually access. So basically, again, and also to kind of wrap up, instead of actually trying to lure Twitter and other big corporations here, why don't we actually encourage our local businesses to grow as big as these large corporations? Create our own Twitter, create our own Facebooks, empower our local economies. We have to get back to what I believe are Florida First initiatives, where we're actually putting Floridians ahead of everybody, because this is where we are. This is our state. We shouldn't be trying to bring people from New York California or any other state to bring their businesses here, we could actually empower and grow our own businesses. So we're not dependent on any of these companies, including also when it comes to the entertainment industry as well, which I used to work in. We don't need Hollywood. We can create our own vibrant entertainment industry. And I believe Senator Hooper can agree on me with this. We could actually, we as Floridians, we have the tools and we actually have the work ethic to actually create our own Florida businesses. We don't need to depend on any outsiders for that. Thank you.
All right. My last question. Where can voters go to learn more about your campaign and your position on issues most important to them? Senator Hooper, where can voters go?
Thank you. We have a website, ed4senate, the number 4, not FOR, but ed4senate.com, that has some of our positions and all about our campaign. Obviously, I'm always available to meet with any group and do so just about every day. But that's the easiest place to go is ed4senate.com.
Great, thank you. And candidate Líonheart, where can voters go to learn more about your campaign?
Sure. The first website is Líonheart2022.com, Líonheart2022.com. That is actually where our platforms and issues are and where you can actually support our campaign. And also we actually we also have merch available at LionheartForFlorida.com, where you could actually purchase merch to actually help our campaign and also help fund us in terms of actually bringing change and actually empowering our Florida economy and our industry. So those are two spots you can find information and actual support. Thank you.
All right. Well, on behalf of the Chamber's members and the Board of Directors, we want to thank you for joining us today and your willingness to serve in an elected office. This concludes our candidate forum, and thank you both.